China is continuing to push the boundaries of naval warfare. Its most sophisticated aircraft carrier, the Fujian, has entered what reports are calling its most intensive sea trial so far, the eighth in a series of rigorous maritime tests.
In September 2025, China's newest supercarrier, the Fujian, launched stealth jets using a magnetic rail system that draws 100 million watts of energy in just 3 seconds. That same week, US, Canadian, and British warships steamed through the Taiwan Strait.
The vessel will be China's third aircraft carrier once it completes sea trials and enters service.
The result? A silent showdown that sent militaries scrambling and sparked fears of a catastrophic miscalculation. What really happened out there? You're about to find out. China's supercarrier breakthrough. The Fujian looks like a different class of ship for the People's Liberation Army Navy. It's not a small upgrade. At roughly 316 meters long and about 76 meters wide, with a full load weight estimated between 80,000 and 85,000 tons, the Fujian sits in a size class once seen only in older US designs. That scale matters. A bigger deck and larger internal volume let the ship carry more planes, more fuel, and more gear. Everything a carrier needs to operate far from home. Visually, the Fujian stands out from China's earlier carriers. The flight deck is flat and long, and it hosts not one, but several electromagnetic catapults. Those launch systems use electricity and magnets to fling aircraft forward, instead of relying on steam or a sloped ramp.
The main difference between EMALS and a steam catapult is that EMALS uses a series of magnetics fed by electricity from the ship.
This change lets fixed-wing jets get airborne with heavier loads and more fuel, which means longer range and more punch once they reach their targets. It's a capability that shifts how a carrier can be used because it expands the kinds of aircraft that can operate from the ship. Below that deck is the hangar and elevator system. Fujian's layout includes 2 starboard hangar lifts that move aircraft between the flight deck and the hangar bays.
While the type and quantity of the weapon elevators on the Fujian are unknown, we know that its aircraft elevators.
The flight deck also has an angled landing runway with a resting gear for recovering planes. Below that deck is the hangar and elevator system. Fujian's layout includes 2 starboard hangar lifts that move aircraft between the flight deck and the hangar bays. The flight deck also has an angled landing runway with a resting gear for recovering planes. In short, the ship was designed around a conventional carrier work cycle: launch, recover, service, repeat, but with modern machinery and room to spare. Those design moves make operations faster and more flexible when the carrier is at sea. The air wing Fujian can host is another reason the ship changes the game. Analysts estimate the carrier could carry around 40 or more fixed-wing aircraft, plus a dozen helicopters, depending on how the ship is loaded.
The Fujian boasts an enormous hangar deck capable of carrying between 40 and 50 aircraft.
The planned types include upgraded J-15 fighters adapted for catapult launches, electronic warfare variants, and newer stealth designs intended to be more survivable in contested skies. On top of those strike jets, the carrier is expected to carry an early warning airborne plane and utility helicopters, the mix needed for striking, sensing, protecting, and moving people and gear. That package turns the Fujian from just a big deck into a floating airbase with reach. Power for a ship this size is straightforward under the skin. Conventional steam turbines paired with diesel generators. That propulsion choice means the vessel relies on traditional mechanical power rather than nuclear reactors. It's a tried-and-true arrangement for large surface ships, and means the Fujian will operate with the support structures and refueling patterns that go with conventionally powered carriers. A key detail about the Fujians is that it's enabled with Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, EMALS, a monumental engineering achievement that replaces the brute force mechanics of older steam catapults with precise electromagnetic power.
The Fujian is China's first domestically designed and built aircraft carrier featuring EMALs.
Unlike steam systems, which are notoriously hard on airframes and inefficient, EMALs uses a linear induction motor, essentially a magnetic rail, to build a wave of force that hurls aircraft off the deck. This system can be finely tuned for different aircraft, applying the exact amount of force needed for a safe launch. While the U.S. Navy pioneered EMALs on the USS Gerald R. Ford, mastering its reliability at sea is a formidable challenge. For China, proving that its system could consistently launch and recover the core of its future carrier air wing was the final technical gate before the ship's formal commissioning. A carrier with electromagnetic launch power and a bigger, more flexible air wing extends the area where a navy can act. It lets aircraft take off heavier, fly farther, and carry more advanced gear. For the region around Taiwan and the wider Western Pacific, that means a ship like the Fujian can press national objectives from farther away and with more options. Whether that is seen as deterrence, projection, or pressure depends on who's watching. But the raw fact is that the Fujian brings new tools to sea power math. The Fujian's final test. September 2nd, 2025, 10 days after the Fujian's highly publicized transit of the Taiwan Strait, Chinese state media released footage that sent a clear message to naval commands worldwide. For the first time, the carrier had successfully launched and recovered its full suite of fixed-wing aircraft using its advanced electromagnetic catapults. The videos showed the distinct shapes of the J-35 stealth fighter, the J-15T heavy strike fighter, and the KJ-600 early warning plane operating from the massive flight deck. In that moment, China announced it had joined an elite club of one, becoming only the second nation in history, after the United States, to catapult a fifth-generation stealth fighter from a carrier. This was no longer a test. It was a demonstration of a fundamental new capability in the Pacific. The journey to this milestone was a methodical 18-month procession of progressively complex trials. The Fujian first slipped into open water in May 2024 for its maiden outing.
Enter the Fujian Type 003, China's first domestically built supercarrier.
A short but crucial run to test engines, power systems, and basic handling. Over the rest of 2024 and into 2025, these short runs grew longer and more ambitious. The critical step came in early September 2025, when the Fujian embarked on its 9th sea trial, this time directly into the world's most watched waterway. On September 12th, the massive carrier sailed through the Taiwan Strait, a move rich with strategic symbolism. It was on this very same day that the U.S. destroyer USS Higgins and the UK frigate HMS Richmond were conducting their own freedom of navigation transit through the same international waters. The Fujian's passage was a powerful assertion of presence, but the real work happened away from the cameras. The tight, technical sequences of catapult launches and arrested recoveries that transform a floating airfield into a combat-ready platform. The trio of aircraft launched that day plays a distinct and complementary role. The J-35 is China's answer to the F-35, a fifth-generation stealth fighter designed to give the carrier a low observable strike and air superiority jet, essential for surviving in contested airspace. The J-15T is the evolved catapult-capable version of China's original carrier fighter. As a heavy multi-role aircraft, it acts as the workhorse, capable of carrying large payloads of air-to-air and air-to-ground munitions. Finally, the KJ-600, with its distinctive large radome, serves as the fleet's eye in the sky. This early warning and control aircraft dramatically expands the carrier group's radar horizon, allowing it to detect and track threats far beyond the ship's own sensors and direct the combat jets accordingly. The successful integration of these aircraft via emails marks a quantum leap in Chinese naval aviation. It signifies a shift from a coastal defense force to a navy capable of projecting power into the blue waters of the Pacific. The Fujian is no longer just an impressive hull. It is a functioning platform that, once fully operational, will grant the PLA the ability to sustain a modern, integrated air wing at sea. This changes the strategic calculus for every nation operating in the Western Pacific, turning the Taiwan Strait from a geographical feature into a permanent naval stage. The Strait Discord. Now that we understand what the Fujian can do, here's why its September 2025 passage sent shockwaves through the region and triggered an Allied naval response. The Taiwan Strait is a 110-mile-wide strategic choke point. Beijing claims these waters as part of its sovereign territory, while Taipei and its partners, like the United States, insist they are international. This fundamental disagreement has turned a vital shipping corridor into a persistent geopolitical flashpoint. In this tense environment, the morning of September 12, 2025, saw the massive 80,000-ton form of China's newest aircraft carrier, the Fujian, enter the strait. For the People's Liberation Army Navy, PLAN, this was a scheduled research and training mission, a final step before the ship's formal commissioning. But for every other Navy watching, it was a deliberate show of force. The Fujian is not just another ship. It is the embodiment of China's naval ambitions, equipped with advanced electromagnetic catapults, emails, and designed to launch a modern air wing.
Catabar is a launch system that uses electromagnetic catapults to launch aircraft into the sky. It allows the Fujian to launch heavier, more advanced planes with bigger payloads,
including the J-35 stealth fighter. The carrier's transit was the culmination of a carefully sequenced series of moves. Just 6 days earlier, on September 6th, the Canadian frigate HMCS Ville de Quebec and the Australian destroyer HMAS Brisbane had sailed through the same waters. Beijing had condemned that transit as a provocation, scrambling jets and ships to shadow the Allied vessels. The stage was thus set for a dramatic rebuttal. The Fujian's passage on September 12th was that rebuttal. In a striking coincidence of timing, the U.S. destroyer USS Higgins and the UK frigate HMS Richmond were also conducting a routine freedom of navigation operation through the strait that very same day. The result was a crowded and tense maritime arena, a U.S.-led Allied surface group, and China's most powerful warship, a symbol of its technological breakthrough, operating in close proximity within the confined waters. This was more than a simple transit. It was a powerful strategic signal. The Fujian's presence demonstrated that China could project a carrier group capable of sustaining advanced air operations directly off Taiwan's coast. This represents a qualitative leap from China's previous carriers, which were more limited in capability. The ability to launch stealth fighters and early warning aircraft from the Fujian changes the risk calculus for any force operating in the region, complicating defense plans and altering the balance of power in the very waters that Beijing considers its own. The events of September 2025 transformed the Taiwan Strait from a potential flashpoint into a live demonstration of competing doctrines. It was a clear message that China intends to not only assert its claims, but to back them with a new generation of naval power, setting the stage for an era of intensified great power competition at sea. Allies answer in the strait. The Fujian's advancing capabilities.
Considering the Fujian's comparable capabilities, we could likely apply a similar figure plus a few billion more for technological developments.
Marked by its jump from basic sea trials to integrated flight operations with stealth fighters and radar aircraft, fundamentally shifted the strategic tone in the Taiwan Strait. This visible progress did not go unanswered. In a clear demonstration of Allied coordination, a sequence of naval transits unfolded in September 2025, designed to underscore that no single power would shape these waters unchallenged. The first move came on September 6th, 2025. Before the Chinese carrier itself had even transited the strait, the Royal Canadian Navy's HMCS Ville de Quebec and the Royal Australian Navy's HMAS Brisbane sailed through the Taiwan Strait. While framed under international law as a routine passage, Beijing's reaction was immediate and sharp. The PLA scrambled naval and air forces to track and monitor the ships, publicly condemning the transit as a provocation. This set the stage for an even more symbolic confrontation just days later. On September 12th, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Higgins steamed through the strait accompanied by the Royal Navy's Type 23 frigate, HMS Richmond. This transit was strategically timed, occurring on the very same day the Fujian was making its own highly publicized passage through those waters. The pairing of these specific ships sent a potent message. The Higgins is a multi-tool of modern naval warfare, equipped with the Aegis combat system, nearly 100 missile cells for air defense, land attack, and ballistic missile defense, plus advanced anti-submarine capabilities. Alongside it, HMS Richmond provided a complementary and robust set of capabilities. Though a veteran design, the Type 23 frigate is a versatile platform, especially in its primary role of anti-submarine warfare. It brings modern sensors, a 4.5-inch gun, Harpoon anti-ship missiles, torpedo tubes, and a 32-cell Sea Scepter vertical launch system for local air defense. Its embarked helicopter further extends the group's reach against submarine and surface threats. Together, the duo presented a combined tactical picture of significant defensive and offensive power, their interoperability signaling deep alliance integration. This was not a unilateral U.S. challenge, but a coordinated Allied statement. The presence of two blue water navies, operating side by side, reinforced the principle that contested sea lanes remain open to all. It demonstrated to regional partners and rivals alike that the technological advance represented by the Fujian would be met with collective resolve and proven capability. The sequenced transits, first Canada and Australia, then the US and UK, all while the Fujian operated nearby.
And the Canadian frigate Quebec sailed through the Taiwan Strait, the stretch of ocean separating Taiwan and mainland China.
Turned the Taiwan Strait into a strategic stage, highlighting that the evolving risk calculus would be answered with a determined multinational presence. China's response. China's response to the mid-September transit was immediate and pointed. The PLA's Eastern Theater Command publicly condemned the passage of the USS Higgins, HMCS Vancouver, and HMS Richmond as troublemaking and provocation, announcing it had dispatched naval and air forces to track, monitor, and warn the ships. This was not passive observation. Forces were placed on heightened alert, shadowing the Allied task force's every move. Official statements and state media framed the transit as sending wrong signals that risked regional stability, using blunt language to register a formal protest. The diplomatic scripts were predictable. Beijing decried the action as provocative, while Washington and London insisted it was a routine, lawful passage through international waters. But the operational reality revealed more than the rhetoric. China's response was tangible, deploying surface ships and aircraft to maintain close visual contact, collect electronic data, and issue radio warnings. This tracking and monitoring is a standard but deliberate tactic to gather intelligence, demonstrate presence, and contest the operation without kinetic force. This calibrated reaction was designed to influence three distinct audiences. Domestically, the strong language and visible patrols reassured Chinese citizens and the PLA that the party was vigorously defending sovereignty. Regionally, it signaled to neighbors like Japan and the Philippines that Beijing would actively enforce its maritime claims. Internationally, the mix of forceful protest and measured action allowed China to object without triggering an immediate escalatory spiral. This incident represented the closest thing to a naval standoff the region had seen in months. While both sides avoided physical brinkmanship, the potential for miscalculation remains a constant danger. A sudden maneuver by a shadowing vessel, an aggressive aircraft flyby, or a misinterpreted radar lock could quickly escalate. Past encounters in the South China Sea have seen dangerously close passes and laser illuminations. In a worst-case scenario, a collision or an accidental weapons discharge, perhaps during a high-tempo jamming or spoofing exercise, could trigger a chain reaction, transforming a war of words into a lethal crisis. For now, both sides manage the risk, but the repeated pattern of transits and responses keeps the region in a state of persistent, low-grade tension. So, what was the U.S. destroyer at the center of this diplomatic storm actually capable of? A ship with a big toolkit. The USS Higgins DDG-76 is a permanent fixture in the Indo-Pacific's most contested waters. As a forward-deployed asset of the U.S. 7th Fleet, it operates with a home field advantage. Its crew possesses an intimate knowledge of the regional seascape and the patterns of potential adversaries, allowing it to respond to crises without the long transit times that constrain ships based in the U.S. When a presence mission is required in the Taiwan Strait or South China Sea, Higgins is often the first tool the Navy reaches for, already on station and integrated with Allied forces. This strategic positioning is backed by formidable multi-role capabilities centered on the Aegis Combat System. This network of sensors, computers, and radars fuses data into a single, coherent picture of the battle space. In the crowded and electronically dense environment of the Taiwan Strait, where encounters with Chinese aircraft and warships are routine, this fusion is an operational necessity. It allows Higgins to track dozens of targets simultaneously, from low-flying missiles to high-altitude jets, and share that intelligence across the fleet, making the entire force more lethal and aware. This superior awareness is meaningless without the firepower to act. Higgins's primary punch comes from its 90-cell Mk-41 Vertical Launch System, VLS, a flexible platform that can launch a mix of missiles. This arsenal typically includes standard missiles, SM, for robust air defense, Tomahawk cruise missiles for long-range strikes against land targets, and ballistic missile interceptors. This combination allows the destroyer to defend a carrier strike group from aerial threats, conduct unilateral precision strikes, or contribute to regional missile defense, all from a single mobile platform. The ship's value extends beneath the waves, a critical domain in the Indo-Pacific. Higgins is equipped with a potent anti-submarine warfare suite, including sonars and torpedoes. Its flight deck and hangar for two SH-60 Seahawk helicopters massively extend its reach, allowing it to hunt the quiet diesel-electric and nuclear submarines operated by regional navies far over the horizon. Ultimately, this technological marvel is powered by its highly trained crew of nearly 300 sailors who maintain a relentless cycle of drills and training to keep the ship at peak readiness. This human expertise transforms advanced hardware into a cohesive combat unit. Finally, an emerging capability highlights Higgins's role in a potential prolonged conflict: at-sea reloading. The ship has participated in exercises to simulate the complex process of transferring missiles from a supply ship while underway. In a peacetime patrol, a ship low on missiles returns to port. In a high-tempo fight over Taiwan, the ability to rearm at sea is what would allow Higgins to sustain combat operations for weeks, instead of being forced to withdraw, making its powerful first punch, not its last. Century versus first generation. A carrier is more than a giant flat deck and a handful of jets. It's a moving city, a flying aircraft factory, and a nerve center all rolled into one. The United States Navy learned that the hard way, over decades, through war and peace. It built habits, schools, and supply lines that turn a carrier from an impressive hull into a combat-ready machine that can run day and night in any ocean. China has built a very impressive ship in the Fujian, But building ships is the easy part compared with building the people, practices, and logistics that make carriers work day after day. The U.S. advantage is simple: time. For nearly a century, U.S. sailors have lived and worked on carriers, passing knowledge down from one generation to the next. That creates systems, formal training programs, specialist crews who know catapults, and arresting wires by heart, simulation centers that rehearse emergency drills, and doctrine shaped by real combat. In practice, that means the Navy doesn't rely on a handful of experts. It runs multi-shift operations where junior technicians can run catapult controls in the middle of the night, and a cycle of replacements keeps experience moving through the fleet. That diffuse, multi-layered skill base is hard to rush. China's carrier sailors are learning fast, but they are still the first generation. Many key jobs, the people who manage launches and recoveries, who adjust catapult power, who troubleshoot arresting gear when a cable snaps, are held by a smaller group of senior technicians. That concentrates expertise at the top. It works in peacetime tests, but in a high-tempo conflict, moving that burden to a wider pool of trained personnel makes the difference between a carrier that can launch wave after wave of aircraft and one that has to pause and wait for a small crew to recover. Building that pool takes tours at sea, repeated drills, and time spent fixing what breaks during real ops. There's no shortcut around months and years of hands-on practice. Then there is maintenance and logistics, the invisible backbone. U.S. carrier groups operate inside a global network of supply ships, forward repair hubs, and carefully timed overhauls. Jets roll back on deck, get inspected, have parts swapped out, and are refueled and rearmed by teams who do the same job hundreds of times a year. When a part fails, spare parts and specialist techs are already in the system. When a major repair is needed, there are dockyards and contractors ready to step in. All of that keeps a carrier and its air wing flying through long deployments. China can manufacture parts quickly, but the organizational habit of sustaining a carrier force, rotating crews, scheduling depot-level maintenance, and managing spare inventories across thousands of miles is a different skill set that grows only with sustained operations. Also, there's how carriers actually fight. The U.S. Navy has had decades to evolve its operational doctrine. How carriers fight together with escorts, supply ships, and aircraft. Command structures, communication standards, and emergency procedures are well tested. China is still shaping its carrier doctrine. How to use catapults and carrier-based sensors in contested seas, how to manage electronic warfare in carrier strike packages, and how to sustain sorties under fire. That experimentation now is necessary, but it also means China's Navy is still refining the playbook, while allies already have several editions tried and proven. Finally, endurance in rough seas and under pressure comes from repetition. Crews that have done thousands of arrested landings and catapult shots build instincts. How to time a launch in heavy swell, how to save a jet after a botched start, how to keep flight operations going when a system falters. Those instincts are not taught in a classroom. They are earned at sea, one launch at a time. China's naval expansion is far from over. Its formidable shipbuilding engine is poised to launch more carriers, with a fourth hull likely already taking shape. But before truly mastering the blue waters, Beijing must clear a critical technological hurdle: power. Unlike the U.S. Navy's nuclear-powered flat-tops, all of China's carriers remain conventionally fueled. This tethers them to friendly ports or vulnerable support ships, limiting their global reach. The strategic solution is nuclear propulsion, a technology China is actively developing, drawing from its experience with nuclear submarines. The pivotal question is whether this next-generation carrier will be the one to make the leap. A nuclear-powered Chinese carrier would signal a breathtaking technological surge. Yet, this achievement would merely unlock a new, more complex challenge: mastering the immense operational and safety curves of a floating nuclear plant. Ultimately, China's progress will be measured not by the launch of a new hull, but by its ability to cultivate the deep-seated institutional knowledge that makes a carrier truly formidable.